All right, over a couple, 2.5 years ago, I cut that walnut up. Came out of a ranger's backyard, and I sliced it up. And now I'm putting it to use. Down the shed and got almost twice that much out of there. I've been cutting it down to make it fit along with some maple. And first thing I did is cut them all a little over 20 inches long. And then I resawed them down about 3 to 4 inches in width, and that one right there is a little wider, but it's already got a glue joint in it. So this is some maple and some walnut. Going to town with it. There's my mess out in the driveway. In the winter months I'd be doing this inside, but I figured I'd get a little suntan while I was out here. There's some of my scraps. There's the chop saw, and there's my stuff that just keeps overflowing my garage. I have to burn it. I just hate it, but I do have to every now and then. And there's some more coals. Get out the rotten stuff. And the maple seems to have warped up more so than the walnut did. So I had to just go ahead and cut all of it down. But I just went ahead and kept it all down about 3.5 to 4 inches or less. And cut the bad stuff out of it pretty much. Any splits, cracks. Got rid of that, left a few little knots in it. But anyway, so now I've jointed them. It's time to run them through the surfacer and plane them down to 3/4. And then when I get that done, I'll be able to glue them up. So there you go. All right, I took all of my cedar and my walnut boards that were resawed down and jointed, glued them together, put 3 bar clamps on them. There's a couple stacks of them there. And this one, I had it sitting on top of my trash can after I got them all glued up. Bam, she came down. And this one lost the clamps on most of it, so I had to put it back together. But I think it was dried enough to where everything stayed pretty much tight. Yeah, that sometimes happens in a small shop. Anyway, there's that. I've got it to surface plane the remainder of the boards and run them through the planer. The DeWalt planer does an excellent job. I generally run them through on 2, and then when it's running, switch over to 1. And the last 2 little bites, about a half turns of each one, then I'll finish them up with that. And it does a pretty good job of cleaning them up. This is some maple and walnut that I had resawed on my bandsaw. Right around the corner over there is a 17-inch grizzly bandsaw, and then I have a resaw table that I put on there. It's a plywood table. It makes that the bandsaw blade bandsaw to about a 10-foot resaw, so I can resaw like 4 feet long logs with it. And it's on a winch, and it pulls it across there, so it makes it fairly easy. But anyway, making some boxes for some scouts that went through the testing, and this is just a little reward. Started the rewards of those guys putting effort into this stuff for FCF, and it's a lot of fun. And I had to go out to the shed and get a bunch of walnut and maple and pull it out. I still got a couple 3 stacks back there. Got some oak back in there as well. So anyway, that's white maple on the bottom down there, and then the walnut stacked up on top of it. The brown stuff's where I dipped it in paraffin to keep it from checking. And for the biggest part, that helps out. I mean, the checking's just very limited to this stuff if you dry it like that. Anyway, in the morning I'll finish up and planing that, gluing them up, and then I'll start putting them on the old CNC and cutting them out and get that work done. So there we go. And that's night. It's 9:15 in the evening, and it's been a fun day out in the shop today. All right, so I just took a piece of my 24-inch by 24-inch laminate that I make a lot of jigs out of, and it's just underlayment for the floor. It's 1/4 inch, anyway. It's 24 by 24. It sits on my jig. I put it up there, and then I just shoot some pin nails in it, 23 gauge pin nails, and hold it down, and then put my boards in there. I'm trying a little something different. I just went ahead and set the table saw up to just barely cut it, about 1/8 of an inch groove in this. And I'm doing it quickly, ran all these over there, and didn't make it very thick. It probably goes in 1/8, and it's 1/8 inch blade. And I'm going to use washers and screws to try and hold it down once it's in the jig. So that's where I'm at now. All these have been cut down to 10 1/8 full to by 20, and they'll should fit in the jig. All right, I just run a screw down into the board, and we'll try that. I can put a bolt in there, but I'll have to pull that off to do that, and it's not that big a deal, but just didn't want to do it. I've got 10 boards to put in there, so I can just move them screws over a little bit if they get watered out. Anyway, there we go. All right, I've been having some fun with this. I am liking how this works. This works out real well, and all it is just a washer with a little bitty 1/8 curve. It's real easy to run all those boards on the saw before I even did it. It didn't take me about a minute, and 10 boards, so it's like 20 cuts. And then I had a way of holding them down that wasn't inside there. There's 2 of the boxes that I'm making. They're just just sitting there. They haven't been glued up or anything, and I didn't really pay that much attention where I put my maples on there. And this kind of came out, and I thought, well, this will be a different set, and it'll come together a little bit different. And so it's kind of fun, and it's doing a good job. I'll run these pieces through that little sander over there, and after they're cut out, and clean them up just a little bit, and then I'll glue them up. So there it is. These boards, I didn't plane them after I glued them up. I basically just resawed all my boards, got them down, then planed them to a certain thickness and glued them up. So I have a little bit of a thickness, but I didn't sand them flat because why do that? Because there's a waste of material in doing that. So I'm just going to have these pieces here to clean up. They came out pretty clean. I may end up just doing that, but there's some of my cut off from the CNCing. So a lot of fun. I enjoy doing this stuff. So here we go, and got the kayaks back. Stuart did a good job bringing them back clean and all in one good shape. So got the trailer getting ready for powwow. It's loaded up with our FCF gear. Just got my topper on yesterday, and so this is a Century topper, about $3,400 topper, and getting that all situated. I got an inverter. I don't think I'm going to mount it in the back of it. I think I'm going to just leave it portable where I can just, if I need to, I can hook it up to a battery and go. So there's my helper. She's wanting the ball kicked, so she's watching me. I better get after it, hadn't I? Alright, I've got tabs down inside here, and then I'll have to cut them out to get this out of there. So it's a quick clean up with the bandsaw, and works out good. It's easy. So I'll just buzz them out and crease them out there. I don't like putting tabs where they're in the way, so try to do that and not do that. All right, you may be heading for powwow if you got your trailer loaded with your kayak sitting on top every year for the last 20 years. So there we go. This year we're doing FCF style camping. So we're going to be camping in the village, and so our encampment will be that way. we'll still be in shorts and t-shirts. But anyway, it's kind of fun. All right, let's go around here and see what happened after 18 minutes. Look at the screen there, 18 minutes and 29 seconds. That's the T3 box joints tap, and it's in there. Let's open it up and see what we got. Lift this up right here, put it up there, grab our little Bandsawed stick here. And here we go. Take this guy here, get out of the software. Sometimes works better with a pencil, especially when my hands are dry. Alright, so moving that back out of the way a little ways. Just hitting the center of it. Pull the screws out of that real quick, and that part will be done. Okay, well, I like putting my box joints. When I cut my box joints, I leave a little bit of an allowance. This has a 0.01 allowance, so that I get a little bit of room in there. Allows me a little room for a glue joint, and I don't have to beat it to try and get it to fit. I could probably drop that down, make it just hair tighter, but you know, this works good. It comes out, looks good, and gives me room to play. So I'm getting ready to glue this up. These are a FCF prize box, which is a Frontiersman Camping Fellowship group with the Royal Rangers. These are prize for my scouts that were applied for scouts. They all couldn't get win because there wasn't enough positions open, but they were 4 boys, young men that ran up for it. It's kind of like a student of the year program, and I'm going to carve their name and stuff in there and put an emblem in there and all that good stuff. So anyway, there we go, and I'm getting ready to glue this up. I'll run glue around all my fingers, and I'll just run a bead of glue with that right there. I'm going to use a Type Bond waterproof glue, because this will sometimes go to the out to the campsite, and they'll put their stuff in it, a little storage box. When I get ready to, after I glue them up, I'll cut them down to about right here, and rip on the table saw, and then put a couple pleats in there to put them together, and then carve the top. So there you have it. Let's get to it. All right. So every now and then you'll have to pull out the big guns for the big glue ups, and I'm gonna need a few more clamps. So up on the shelf up there, I keep some of my little bit longer clamps that I don't really need. I keep the smaller ones here, but every now and then I need a little bit longer reach. So I'll pull these out and get those boxes glued up. Don't underestimate a garage sale find. A suitcase for putting some tools like this in there for storage, so you can pull in and out. They're not all just all over your walls and everywhere, just cluttering up. You know, like I have something to say about that. But anyway, makes a great storage case. So let's get busy putting this thing together. Okay, all glued up. 6-sided box joints, kind of a rarity because of the precision involved. And they make a cool looking box, and they make a strong box. All glued up and ready to cut the lids, or sand them and then cut the lids off of them. Alright, well, I started out gluing those up this morning, and after about a 3-hour glue up, I took them and unclamped them, and then proceeded to sand them with a belt sander, and to get all the little points down. They came out pretty good. You know, if I wanted to, I could take some sawdust and grind in there and fill all that up, but I'm not looking for perfection. These are 14, 15, 16-year-old boys, so they're going to probably not be treated in just the utmost kindness. So they'll probably be out camping with us and pouring down rain. So, you know, as long as they like them, that's good. So next thing I did is I just, of course, cut the tops off 2.5 inches, and then used the table saw, the crosscut sled, and then I cut a little piece of scrap 7 inches long, put that in on each side, and put a pin nail in it, clamped it. That'll line the top up. Next thing I'll do is I'll engrave the emblem in here, and then their name and the date they became a scout or applied for scout. So I had the boys do this, and this is their reward for going to that work and going through that. So anyway, it's coming together, and we'll see how she comes out in a little while. All right, got another one in there that's carved, and I just slipped the top on there, and I haven't sanded it yet, but anyway, it does a great job of carving. I'll hit that with a little bit of sander now. I've got to carve some text in here and the bottom. I'll do the 3 of them, and then I'll carve the text independently. And I've got another lid in there that's carved, and I'll do that 3rd lid. So we're getting there closer and closer. All right, the shark, if you put it right there where the origin is, when it fires up, it now has come up and said that's 0, 0. So it's pretty sweet. And so if you put your depth and everything in there in the center, you really never lose it. So pretty sweet on that. And we'll boot up and get this thing to carve in the next one. All right. While I'm making these boxes, there's a little variance in the height. I mean, even a 32nd of an inch makes a difference on how high your text is. So sometimes I have to go back. I always carve these as 2 separate text fields because they're spaced far apart. There's a 32nd of a difference between here and here. So when you're doing this, carve these all in one carving due to your height situation. Every now and then I have to carve it and say, okay, that's not deep enough, and put it over there, and I'll bump it down, 0.015 or so, and just drop it down to work. And you can see, that even on the settings that are here, it gets shallower on this side, and you can't really see it, but the machine sees it. So that goes together. They're coming along just fine. One of the boys won the District Scout Elections, so I'm going to carve into here on his and put that information on here, but it wouldn't fit underneath my underneath my scroll, or underneath my saw, so I had to end up cutting just around here, and I'll put a little bit of a groove in there and put just a little bit of a piece of walnut, a thin piece of walnut, something like that, all the way around it. Trim it off, and that'll cover that up, and put that depth right back in there. It's just really hard to get them to line up whenever you're cutting them. This is kind of on a sled. I probably would have been better off just using a rip saw, but even at that, they'll still, use a table saw. And anyway, that didn't come out as good as I wanted it to, so I'll have to fix that while I'm doing that. All right, that's a fine example of it not being cut deep enough. So I'm going to go back here and change my setting and go down just a hair so that it'll carve just a hair deeper. All right, when you go to Southern Missouri Containers and you ask for something, they come up with a package of take-a-home sack cardboard, a corrugated fiberboard is what they call it. These 2 fine young men here have got this all loaded up in about 5 minutes without hardly doing anything. What do you guys have to say for yourself?
Let's unload it.
Let's get it done. All right, see you guys. All right, I'm using this little Cobalt 1.7, 90 psi, 3/4 running horsepower, and nice and quiet. Really like it. It's doing a good job. These are some boxes that I've made for our scouts that are been competing in our FCF group. This is one of the district scouts. I've just engraved his box. I made him the first box, and then made these other 3 to add to that. They're upside down right now. The engraving's on the top. I generally spray the bottoms and do that. on his box, my lid was a little too tall, so I had to cut it down to 2.5 inches, which is the same as this. And I put a little inlay strip all the way around, and when I glued it all back together so that it would fit, because I had to carve this into his box. Anyway, I'm using some brushing lacquer, some Minwax clear brushing lacquer, and this is the gun. I picked it up from Harbor Freight. It's doing a good job. This other gun used too much air, and this one here does really good for spraying that. I could just keep spraying, and it kept up with it, so that's good. This one was down about half of the cubic feet per inch that this one was, so that was a better match. And so I've got it dialed in, and it's doing a good job. I did take the brushing liquid and thinned it about 15%. And I started out 50 mil of lacquer thinner right there, and then I filled it up with lacquer up to 250. So it was about a little over, somewhere between 10 and 15% is where I was filling that up in there. So anyway, I'm letting that coat dry just a little bit. Then I'll turn it over on, hit the other side. Then I'll do a light sand and then hit it with another clear coat. Alright, I got several coats of lacquer on them. I thinned some of that brushing lacquer and put it on there.